South Lanarkshire is shaped by old castles and quiet towns, but behind them lie stories of grief and betrayal. Some places here never let go of the past, and it is still said to linger. Shieldhill Castle, set amid rolling countryside near Shieldhill Castle, is a secluded 14th century tower house, long associated with noble lineage and quiet authority. Its thick stone walls and isolated position suggest protection and permanence. Yet for centuries, the castle has carried a reputation shaped not by war, but by grief. The most well-known apparition connected to Shieldhill Castle is the Grey Lady. She is believed to have been the daughter of a local lord from the Chancellor family, though her true identity and fate remain uncertain. What endures instead are multiple versions of a tragic story, each reflecting despair rather than resolution. In one account, the young woman was assaulted by soldiers, her child taken from her at birth and left to die. Overcome with grief, she is said to have ended her own life shortly afterwards. Another version claims she fell in love with the gamekeeper's son. Their child was stillborn, and when the infant was buried without her consent, she is said to have wept herself to death. A third tradition suggests her father forbade her relationship with a local man, leading her to take her own life in desperation. The dates associated with these stories vary widely, ranging from the 14th century to the mid-17th century. No historical records confirm any single version. Yet despite the lack of documentation, the Grey Lady is consistently reported. Witnesses describe seeing a pale female figure within one of the castle rooms, often standing silently or moving slowly. She has also been seen walking through the grounds toward what is believed to be her burial place, her presence described as sorrowful rather than frightening. Beyond the Grey Lady, Shieldhill Castle is associated with other unexplained activity. The apparition of a butler has been reported along with chairs moving by themselves and footsteps echoing through empty rooms. Modern phenomena have also been noted, television channels changing without explanation, appliances switching on sensor lights, activating, and people experiencing unexplained sensations, such as light touches or tickling on the arm. Paranormal researchers suggest Shieldhill Castle may host both intelligent and residual hauntings. The Grey Lady appears aware of her surroundings, while the repeated environmental disturbances may represent emotional energy embedded over centuries. Skeptics argue that old buildings and expectation can influence perception, yet the consistency of reports across generations continues to sustain the legend. Shieldhill Castle remains quiet and private, but behind its walls, many believe a young woman's grief never found a voice and still walks the ground where it began. Applebank Inn, situated on Millhoe Road in the town of Larkhall, the Applebank Inn is an unassuming local pub, outwardly ordinary and well frequented by regulars. Yet beneath its familiar atmosphere lies a history marked by unexplained disturbances that have persisted for more than a century. The hauntings at the Applebank Inn are most often associated with poltergeist-like activity. Staff and visitors have reported objects being moved, hidden, or relocated without explanation. Items left in one place are later discovered elsewhere, sometimes deliberately arranged, other times seemingly displaced at random. These incidents occur sporadically, with no clear pattern, adding to the sense of unease rather than spectacle. The disturbances are commonly linked to a figure known locally as the Black Lady. According to tradition, she was an Indian woman who vanished in the area around the year 1900. Little is known about her identity or circumstances, and no official records clearly document her disappearance. This absence of information has allowed speculation and folklore to take root. Some believe the Black Lady was traveling through the region and met an unknown fate, while others suggest she may have lived locally and disappeared under suspicious circumstances. Over time, her story became entwined with the inn, transforming her into a symbolic presence rather than a clearly defined historical figure. Witnesses do not typically report seeing a full apparition. Instead, her presence is felt through subtle but persistent interference. Glasses have been known to move behind the bar. Personal belongings temporarily vanish, only to reappear later in unexpected places. Doors have been found open after being securely closed, and staff have reported the sensation of being watched while alone in the building. Unlike more dramatic hauntings, the atmosphere at the Applebank Inn is described as quietly unsettling rather than overtly frightening. Many witnesses remark that the disturbances feel intentional, as though attempting to draw attention rather than cause harm. Paranormal researchers suggest the phenomena may represent an intelligent haunting, a presence aware of its surroundings and capable of interaction. Others believe the activity reflects residual emotional energy linked to loss, isolation, and an unresolved disappearance. Skeptics argue that busy public buildings naturally lend themselves to misinterpretation, yet the longevity of the reports spanning decades continues to sustain belief among locals. The Applebank Inn remains open and welcoming, but when the building grows quiet, some believe the Black Lady still lingers unseen, unheard, yet unwilling to be forgotten. David Livingstone Centre. Set within a group of restored 18th-century mill buildings in Blantyre, the David Livingstone Centre is best known as the birthplace of the famous explorer and missionary. Dedicated to education, history, and cultural heritage, it is a place associated with learning and reflection rather than fear. Yet over the years, staff and visitors have reported a series of unexplained incidents that suggest the buildings may not be entirely at rest. The hauntings here are generally described as subtle and understated. There are no widely reported full-bodied apparitions, no dramatic screams or violent disturbances. Instead, the activity takes the form of persistent poltergeist-like behavior, quiet, repetitive, and difficult to dismiss. Objects have been known to disappear from their usual places, only to reappear hours or days later in locations that make no practical sense. Items carefully stored or displayed have been found moved without any sign of forced access. In some cases, objects vanish entirely during the day and are later discovered returned overnight, undamaged but unmistakably relocated. Staff working alone have reported the sensation of being followed through empty rooms, accompanied by faint, unexplained sounds, soft knocks, light footsteps, or the subtle movement of air. Doors have been found unlocked after being secured, and lights have occasionally been discovered switched on in areas left dark. What makes these experiences particularly unsettling is their consistency. Different members of staff working at different times and often unaware of previous reports describe remarkably similar incidents. None of the activity appears aggressive, but its persistence suggests intention rather than coincidence. There is no single figure or legend directly associated with the hauntings. Some speculate that the activity may be linked to the mill workers and families who once lived and labored on the site, enduring long hours and harsh conditions. Others believe the phenomena could be residual energy, emotional impressions left behind by generations of daily life, stress, and hardship. Paranormal investigators note that historic domestic and working environments often produce this type of low-level activity, particularly where people lived communally over long periods. Skeptics attribute the reports to environmental factors, old buildings settling, or human error. Yet those who experience the disturbances often insist the sensations feel deliberate and personal. The David Livingstone Centre stands as a place of history and inspiration. But in the quiet moments when corridors empty and the lights dim, some believe unseen hands still rearrange the past, reminding visitors that even places of learning can hold unfinished stories. Nethan Castle, rising above the River Nethan near the village of Blackwood, Nethan Castle stands as a powerful reminder of Scotland's turbulent past. Built in the early 16th century, the fortress played a role in border conflicts, clan rivalries, and political unrest. Today, its ruined walls and exposed towers give the site a bleak, unsettling atmosphere, one that many believe is heightened by lingering supernatural activity. One of the most frequently reported apparitions at Nethan Castle is that of a headless figure dressed in white. Witnesses describe the shape appearing briefly within the ruins before vanishing without warning. The figure is often accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature and a feeling of unease that causes visitors to leave the area abruptly. In addition to the headless ghost, vague, shadowy forms have been seen moving through doorways and along the inner walls. Some witnesses report seeing a woman dressed in period Stuart-era clothing, gliding silently through the castle grounds. Her appearance is fleeting, often disappearing when directly approached. Strange sounds are also commonly reported. Visitors have described hearing pipe music drifting across the ruins despite no musicians being present. Women's voices have been heard murmuring softly, particularly near the remains of former living quarters. These sounds are often carried on the wind, fading in and out without a clear source. Objects have occasionally been found moved from their original positions despite the exposed nature of the site and lack of enclosed spaces. Stones appear displaced, and personal items have been known to fall or shift unexpectedly, adding to the sense that the site is not entirely abandoned. Local legend suggests the hauntings may be connected to violent events and executions that occurred during periods of conflict. Others believe the spirits belong to those who lived and died within the castle walls, soldiers' servants, or noble residents whose lives ended in betrayal or loss. Paranormal researchers suggest Nethan Castle exhibits both residual and intelligent hauntings. The repetition of certain sounds and apparitions points to historical events replaying themselves, while the responsive nature of some encounters suggests awareness. Skeptics argue that the castle's exposed structure, wind patterns, and isolation can easily influence perception. Yet many visitors report similar experiences without prior knowledge of the legends. Nethan Castle is a place of stark beauty and historical importance. But as daylight fades and shadows stretch across the ruins, some believe the castle remembers its past and refuses to let it rest. Buck's Head Hotel, located on Townhead Street in the historic market town of Strathaven, the Buck's Head Hotel appears at first glance to be a typical old Scottish inn. Yet behind its warm exterior and familiar layout lies a reputation shaped by sorrow, secrecy, and persistent paranormal activity. The most frequently reported spirit is that of a young girl believed to be around 16 years old. Accounts of her origin vary. In one version of the legend, she became pregnant and, overwhelmed by shame and fear, took her own life. Another version claims she was murdered by her lover, strangled in a moment of rage and desperation. Regardless of the truth, witnesses consistently describe a female presence moving quietly through different parts of the hotel. Guests have reported seeing a young girl standing silently in corridors or at the foot of staircases. She often vanishes when spoken to, leaving behind an intense sense of sadness rather than fear. Some visitors describe sudden emotional heaviness as though the building itself carries grief. A second apparition reported at the Buck's Head Hotel is that of a very young child, estimated to be 3 or 4 years old. According to local stories, this small figure is sometimes heard crying softly or asking after a one-eyed cat. The child has been seen briefly in rooms and hallways before disappearing without sound. In addition to these figures, A third spirit is believed to be a former owner of the hotel. This presence is rarely seen, but is often associated with unexplained disturbances, particularly after closing hours. Poltergeist-like activity is one of the defining features of this location. Objects have been known to move on their own glasses, rattling on shelves, and items being displaced without explanation. Doors open and close quietly, and footsteps are heard in empty rooms late at night. Staff members report that the atmosphere can change, suddenly becoming tense and oppressive without warning. Some refuse to work alone in certain areas after dark. Paranormal investigators suggest the Buck's Head Hotel may host multiple intelligent hauntings with spirits aware of their surroundings and capable of interaction. The emotional nature of the encounters supports this theory. Skeptics argue that expectation and the building's age play a role, yet the consistency of reports across decades remains striking. The Buck's Head Hotel continues to welcome guests, but when the lights dim and the corridors fall silent, many believe the past still moves through its rooms, searching, waiting, and refusing to be forgotten. Burkewood House, hidden among trees near the village of Lesmahago, stands Burkewood House, also known as Burkewood Castle. The building is largely closed to the public and rarely spoken about, yet it has developed a reputation as one of the most quietly unsettling locations in South Lanarkshire. Unlike sites marked by dramatic legends or violent deaths, the disturbances at Burkewood House are subtle, persistent, and deeply unnerving. Reports suggest a presence that does not seek attention, but makes itself known through repetition and intrusion. One of the most common experiences involves locked rooms unlocking themselves without explanation. Doors that were secured and checked are later found open, sometimes repeatedly, as if someone is moving deliberately through the building. These incidents often occur late at night or during early morning hours. Footsteps are frequently reported slow and measured, echoing along corridors and staircases when no one else is present. Witnesses describe the sound as heavy and purposeful, stopping abruptly when investigated. No source is ever found. Lighting disturbances are another recurring phenomenon. Lights switch on and off by themselves, sometimes in sequence, moving from room to room. Electrical systems have been checked and found to be functioning normally, leaving staff unable to explain the activity. Perhaps the most unsettling feature of Burkewood House is the repeated smell of cigar smoke. The scent appears suddenly, often lingering in specific rooms or hallways before fading away. No one present is smoking, and the smell cannot be traced to any physical source. The aroma is described as strong, old-fashioned, and unmistakable. Those who spend time in the building often report a sensation of being watched, particularly in enclosed spaces. Some describe a pressure in the chest or a sudden feeling of unease, as though they are not alone, even in silence. Paranormal researchers believe the activity at Burkewood House may be linked to a former resident or caretaker, possibly someone who spent much of their life within the building. The nature of the phenomena suggests an intelligent presence rather than random residual energy. Skeptics argue that old buildings naturally produce unexplained sounds and smells, yet the consistency of reports, especially regarding locked doors and cigar smoke, has kept the house firmly within local folklore. Burkewood House remains quiet and largely unseen, but behind its closed doors, many believe something still moves through its rooms, patient, observant, and unwilling to leave. Clydesdale Hotel. Situated on Clydesdale Street in the town of Hamilton, the Clydesdale Hotel appears unremarkable at first glance. It is a traditional local hotel and public house familiar to residents and visitors alike. Yet behind its ordinary exterior, staff and guests have long reported strange occurrences that resist easy explanation. Unlike castles or ancient ruins, the Clydesdale Hotel does not rely on dramatic legends. Instead, its reputation comes from repeated, low-level disturbances, the kind that slowly erode a sense of normality. One of the most frequently mentioned issues involves a particular bedroom. Guests staying in this room have reported an overwhelming feeling of discomfort, often without being able to explain why. Some describe a sensation of pressure in the air as though the room feels smaller or heavier than it should. Others say they struggle to sleep, experiencing sudden anxiety or the sense that someone is present nearby. Objects have been known to fall or move without obvious cause, particularly behind the bar area. Bottles, glasses, and small items have reportedly been knocked over when no one was close enough to touch them. These incidents tend to happen late at night, when the building is quiet and staff numbers are low. Staff members have also reported hearing unexplained sounds, soft footsteps, faint knocks, and the occasional rustle, as if someone is moving just out of sight. When checked, the areas are found empty. Unlike more aggressive hauntings, there are no reports of apparitions or violent activity. Instead, the atmosphere is described as persistently unsettled. People often comment that the building feels different at night, colder and more oppressive, even when temperatures remain unchanged. Paranormal researchers suggest the activity at the Clydesdale Hotel may be the result of residual energy rather than an intelligent presence. Repeated human activity, emotional moments, and long-term occupation can, according to some theories, leave impressions that replay under certain conditions. Skeptics argue that busy hospitality environments naturally create unexplained noises and minor accidents. However, long-serving staff insist that the disturbances follow no practical pattern and feel distinctly separate from normal activity. The Clydesdale Hotel continues to operate as a welcoming local venue. Yet after closing time, when lights dim and conversations fade, many believe the building reveals another side, one shaped not by fear, but by the quiet persistence of something that refuses to fully disappear. Strathaven Castle. Rising quietly on the outskirts of Strathaven, the ruins of Strathaven Castle stand as a reminder of medieval power and punishment. Though now partially collapsed, the castle remains one of the most chilling locations in South Lanarkshire, due to a legend rooted in cruelty and confinement. The most enduring story associated with Strathaven Castle is that of the White Lady. According to legend, she was the wife of a laird who ruled the castle centuries ago. Described as gentle and obedient, she is said to have angered her husband through behavior considered unacceptable by the standards of the time. Some versions suggest infidelity, others claim defiance or disobedience. As punishment, the laird is believed to have ordered his wife sealed alive within the stone walls of the castle. During demolition work centuries later, a human skeleton was reportedly discovered, embedded within the masonry, a finding that many believe confirms the legend, though no formal records survive. Since then, sightings of a pale female figure dressed in white have been reported near the ruins. Witnesses describe her appearing silently, often near remaining walls or archways, before fading away. Her presence is said to be calm, but deeply unsettling, accompanied by a sudden chill and a sense of sorrow rather than fear. Visitors have also reported unexplained sounds near the castle, including faint footsteps on stone and the soft rustling of fabric as if a dress is brushing against the walls. These sounds are often heard in still weather when the surrounding area is quiet. Paranormal investigators classify Strathaven Castle as a site of intelligent haunting, suggesting the White Lady may be aware of her surroundings. Her repeated appearances in specific locations support this theory. Skeptics argue that ruins are prone to misinterpretation, with shadows, wind, and natural decay creating the illusion of movement and sound. However, the emotional weight felt by many visitors is difficult to dismiss. Strathaven Castle no longer serves as a fortress or home, but within its broken walls, many believe a woman still walks bound, not by chains, but by stone memory and injustice. Clydesdale Inn. Situated on Broomgate in the historic town of Lanark, the Clydesdale Inn appears unremarkable at first glance, a traditional public house offering warmth and familiarity. Yet beneath its floors and behind its walls lies a much older history, one that many believe has left a lasting presence. The inn is built on land once occupied by a friary, and parts of the original structure are believed to survive beneath the building, particularly in the cellar. It is here that the most persistent reports of paranormal activity originate. One of the earliest and most consistent sightings is that of a monk. Witnesses describe a robed figure appearing briefly in the cellar area, often near storage rooms. The apparition does not speak, but its presence is said to feel heavy and watchful. In some cases, the monk is seen only as a shadow, while in others, he appears more solid before fading away. Staff and patrons have also reported the sensation of someone rushing past them in narrow corridors, though no one is there. Glasses have rattled without being touched, doors have slammed unexpectedly, and footsteps have been heard moving through empty rooms, particularly during quiet periods. In the upper parts of the building, a more unsettling phenomenon has been reported: the sound of a child crying. The cries are described as soft but persistent, often occurring late at night when the inn is otherwise silent. No explanation has ever been found, and no records confirm the presence of children in the friary at the time, adding to the mystery. Some witnesses describe a sudden drop in temperature near the cellar stairs, while others report an overwhelming sense of unease without any visible cause. Electrical disturbances have been minor but noticeable, including lights flickering briefly before returning to normal. Paranormal researchers suggest the Clydesdale Inn may host both residual and intelligent hauntings. The monk may represent a residual imprint of religious life once rooted here, while the child's cries suggest unresolved trauma replaying in fragments. Skeptics argue that old buildings often produce strange sounds as they settle, and that suggestion plays a role. Yet the consistency of reports over many years continues to raise questions. Today, the Clydesdale Inn remains a place of gathering and conversation. But when the doors close and the cellar grows quiet, many believe something else still moves below, lingering, not in anger, but in memory. In South Lanarkshire, not all hauntings belong to castles. Some wait quietly beneath everyday places where history was never truly laid to rest. South Lanarkshire may seem quiet today, but its castles, inns, and forgotten rooms still carry stories shaped by loss and silence. If any of these places stayed with you, share your thoughts below. And for more true haunted history across Britain, this is Creepy Experience.